Chapter 14-15. Liang Bingbing's words instantly caused an uproar among the onlookers. Bingbing, we support you! This girl must be the delinquent girl Bingbing mentioned. How could someone with this status be with our school hunkin'? That's right, it really is a prince and a commoner. It really makes people feel disgusted. Isn't that so? She's not embarrassed to come to class 1. I don't know who gave her the courage. Is it Liang Jingru? Commoner? Luo Qinchin narrowed her cold eyes and her lips curled into a cold arc. She narrowed her eyes as she looked at Liang Bingbing. Then let this commoner ask you to scram. Her voice wasn't soft or heavy, but it was powerful. These words were inexplicable in the eyes of the crowd, but they caused Liang Bingbing to tremble all over. You're asking me to scram? 3 seconds later, Liang Bingbing came back to her senses. She looked at her with a sharp laugh. It can't be that your brain is broken, right? You want me to scram? Her lips were crooked and her voice was filled with ridicule. Not to mention that Luo Qinchin was just a delinquent girl. Even if it was in Yuxing today, he wasn't qualified to say this to her. Luo Qinchin, was just a delinquent girl who had nothing. What right did she have? Liang Bingbing, it seems like you won't cry until you see the coffin. Luo Qinchin gave a shrug. Her clear eyes became incomparably deep, and there was an aura that was different from normal people as she walked towards her step by step. What do you want to do? Liang Bingbing nervously swallowed a mouthful of saliva and couldn't help moving back. Don't come over, our Bingbing is weak and I've trained. I definitely won't let you off if you bully her. The little follower in the red coat had an arrogant look, not showing any fear at all. After all, the girl in front of her looked very weak. She wasn't her match at all. She was a 3rd-degree yellow belt taekwondo practitioner. But Liang Bingbing's expression was completely different. She had seen Luo Qinchin fight before, and it was like Zhao Jinxian said, even if there were 100 of her, she couldn't beat a single Luo Qinchin. Now you know fear. Why were you so arrogant before? Don't do anything rash. I will call the police. Do you think I'll give you a chance? Don't you know that after spending so much time with people with personality disorders, mutual destruction seems to be a major event in life? She stood beside Liang Bingbing's desk and pushed it with her left hand. The desk crashed into the wall, and the entire desk was smashed into smithereens. Everyone in the class sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at Luo Qinchin in disbelief. The few people who had been bad-mouthing her earlier all shrunk their necks, deeply afraid that they would be implicated. Liang Bingbing even staggered back and almost fell to the ground. Don't come over, this is a lawful society. Even if you're a young lady. Even if you haven't received any higher education, you still have to understand the law. Liang Bingbing was a little scared when she saw Luo Qinchin's eyes. She was afraid that a casual move from her could take her life. The girl in the red coat who was standing next to her had long hidden far away. The so-called friendship that was stronger than gold in their words was so fragile. Wait a minute. Just as Liang Bingbing covered her head and closed her eyes in fear, the principal's deep voice sounded from the door. He was panting heavily and his forehead was dotted with sweat. It was obvious that he had rushed over immediately after receiving Luo Qinchin's timed email. Chapter 14-16. When the principal saw this email, he wasn't unhappy at all. Instead, he was very happy. Earlier, it was said that Mr. L wanted to build a huge shopping mall in the Golden Triangle area, but the affiliated high school was also included in it. According to the land division system, the owner of the land had the right to demolish the school. After all, the owner of the land had the most power. Since the government put this area up for auction, it proved that Luo Qinchin razing the affiliated high school to the ground was within their expectations. However, in this expectation, there was a sudden turn for the better. The moment the principal appeared, the most excited person in the entire class was Liang Bingbing. This was like a drowning person who suddenly pulled a life-saving straw into the water. She wanted to live so much that she almost ignored her image and rushed towards the principal. "Principal, look at this little delinquent girl. She actually came to our class to behave atrociously. Aren't you going to expel her?" Oh right, look at that table over there. If I didn't dodge fast enough, I would have ended up like her. This person's existence is the biggest threat to the safety of outstanding students like us." She was very angry when she spoke. Every word was like a gem, as if Luo Qingchen had committed a big crime, and she was the pillar of the country. "I mean, Principal, you can't underestimate this kind of bad person. Expel her. The school must expel her." Liang Bingbing interrupted the principal again. She screamed out Luo Qingchen's evil deeds as much as possible. "Student Liang Bingbing!" The principal roared very angrily. He looked at her very seriously and said, "Go and pack your things and leave the school immediately." Originally, he felt a little sorry for Liang Bingbing, but now he didn't feel sorry at all. This student who only knew how to accuse others was a complete disgrace to the affiliated high school. "Yes, let her leave the school," Liang Bingbing roared. It seemed that she had lost her mind. She looked at Luo Qingchen angrily. "I want you to leave the school." The principal's simple and honest voice resounded throughout the classroom. Everyone held their breath and stared at Liang Bingbing. They didn't dare to make a sound, because this scene was just too awkward. Liang Bingbing thought that the principal was here to save her, but little did she know that the principal was here to chase her away. "Principal, what did you say?" She turned her head and her eyes widened in disbelief. "I think I've made myself very clear." The principal angrily threw a stack of photocopied documents onto the podium. This stack of documents was attached to the email sent by Luo Qingchen. It contained all the evil deeds that Liang Bingbing had done. Liang Bingbing glanced at it. It actually contained Su Nian's accusation that she was involved in the kidnapping. "Principal, how can you let me leave the school just because of this one-sided story?" "That's true." The principal cleared his throat and continued. "The Board of Governors of the affiliated high school officially announces that due to Liang Bingbing's involvement in the kidnapping, Gu will expel her from the school forever." At this moment, the onlookers who had been bad-mouthing Luo Qingchen looked at Liang Bingbing with disdain. "What are you looking at? You believe everything he says? Who doesn't know if this little delinquent slept with the principal who can't differentiate between right and wrong?" Slap! A crisp slap landed on Liang Bingbing's face. Chapter 14-17. See. Everyone took a cold breath, like they were watching a harem drama of the affiliated high school. Liang Bingbing covered her red face and her eyes were a bit red as tears came out. She bit her lips hard and said, "You dare to hit me! As a teacher, you shouldn't have done this." The principal gave a bow to everyone in the class before turning to Liang Bingbing. "But for a junior like you who doesn't respect her elders, this slap is considered light." At that moment, there were some students who didn't think it was reasonable. Luo Qingchen put her hands in her pocket and when she passed by the angry Liang Bingbing, she said in a soft voice, "You can't beat me." She took a few steps before Liang Bingbing's response came from behind her. "Luo Qingchen, just you wait, I definitely won't let you go." It was unknown if it was because she was too angry that she stopped being afraid or if it was because the principal was here. Luo Qingchen couldn't do something like killing someone. When she said this, she was filled with anger and unwillingness. The shame that she, Liang Bingbing, suffered today, she would definitely take it back in the future. After Liang Bingbing's matter was taken care of, she wanted to find Zhao Jinxian since this man really was an eyesore to her. But she never thought that Zhao Jinxian would already be caught. After Su Nian was taken away by the police for intentionally injuring someone, he had completely exposed Zhao Jinxian's deed. Robbery, prostitution, drug trafficking, arson, these evil deeds, Zhao Jinxian could be said to have committed all kinds of evil deed. It was clear that people who opened bars were more social, but after this layer of society was exposed, there were more and more bad things that came out. Zhao Jinxian cursed Sun Yan as soon as he arrived at the detention center. You're not righteous, father will be the first to kill you if I go in. Sun Yan gave a shrug as he still had that evil charming smile on his lip. He couldn't kill in Yuxing, which meant that he was useless or that person's life wasn't meant to end. However, this did not mean that he could still put Luo Qingchen in danger. Liang Bingbing was not a person to be feared. Without Zhao Jinxian, she could not pose any threat to Luo Qingchen. Then, as long as Zhao Jinxian was put in jail, he could protect her. In fact, in Sun Yan's heart, he felt sorry for Luo Qingchen. Perhaps he felt sorry for her more than he liked her. After all, the deep hatred between him and the An family had nothing to do with Luo Qingchen. She couldn't put her in danger because she liked An Yuxing. After Luo Qingchen learned of this matter, she went to the detention center and spent some money to see An Yuxing. He looked a little tired, probably because he hadn't shaved his beard for a long time, and his clothes were a little untidy. But the moment he opened his mouth, he seemed to be in high spirits. I never thought that you would come to see me. Sun Yan looked at Luo Qingchen and spread his hands. Do you have a cigarette? Luo Qingchen's expression was very calm as she took out a pack of cigarettes and a lighter for him. He looked at the brand and his lips curled into a beautiful curve. Does he like this brand? He doesn't smoke. I like this brand. Sun Yan took a deep puff before saying with a smile, It's just too choking. Chapter 14:18. Luo Qingchen heard this and wasn't surprised by Sun Yan's question at all. She put her hands in her pocket as she sat in front of him and calmly replied, He won't die. You're quite optimistic. Sun Yan's expression was a bit desperate. He took another deep puff before looking at her and saying, I cut an artery. An artery on the neck, how could he live? As long as it took 10 seconds, he would go into shock. In medicine, if a large artery was accidentally cut during surgery, it was possible to lose one's life, not to mention, you think that if he died, I would still come to see you? Luo Qingchen's calm voice had a bit of coldness to it. She indeed didn't hate Sun Yan, but for him to hurt An Yuxing like this, she really couldn't like it. Ha ha! He was a bit surprised before he said with a laugh of self-ridicule, That's right, that's right. In the end, he had spent a lifetime in prison and possibly his life, but he couldn't die with the person he hated the most in this world. He had no grudge with An Yuxing, but his hatred was deep. Since he's still alive, why did you come looking for me instead of staying by his side? You sent Zhao Jinxian in. Right. You're here to thank me. He looked at her eyes and felt a bit sad, which was a bit funny. Thank you. She sincerely thanked him, but there wasn't any emotion in her words. No need. Sun Yan gave a chuckle and shook the cigarette box in his hand. We're even. There was no grudge between you and me. Luo Qingchen slowly stood up and said in an ice-cold voice, The one who owes you in this world is An Yang, it has never been An Yuxing. If An Yuxing died this time and I wasn't caught, I would definitely kill An Yang. He looked at her with a fierce look in his eyes. But Luo Qingchen said with a faint smile, No, you wouldn't. He was stunned and didn't say anything. He just looked at Luo Qingchen with some surprise in his eyes, as if a little secret in his heart had been discovered. You have never thought of taking revenge on An Yang, even though you know very well that he is the one you should take revenge on. Don't say any more. Sun Yan was a little agitated and directly interrupted her. Because all along what you wanted was to obtain his love, not to destroy him. I told you to stop talking. Sun Yan slammed the table like a madman when he heard her words. He raised his voice and looked at her sadly. You won't understand that feeling. You will never understand. He grew up in ridicule. Without a father, it was as if he didn't have a shoulder to shelter him from the wind and rain. He just wanted a shoulder. If An Yang only had one son left in this world, would he give him a second look? If you weren't so extreme, perhaps you would have one more father and one more brother. She paused and continued, No, two. These were the last words she said to him in jail. She hoped that they would never meet again. Ding, affection has decreased by 100%. Mission completion rate is now 0%. Ding-ling. At this moment, she only felt her heart thumping, and there was an indescribable feeling of suffocation. The rapid ringing of her phone filled her mind again and again. Her body trembled as she picked up Xia Qingrou's call. "Hello, Qingchen?" Xia Qingrou excitedly said from the other side. "Big brother is awake." Chapter 14:19. She took a taxi and headed back to the hospital. There was snow in the sky and the goose feather-like snowflakes fell down one by one. Her eyes couldn't help turning red. She looked up slightly and didn't let her tears fall down. The driver was an uncle who was around 40 years old. He looked at her in the mirror and slowly said in the voice of an elder, "Little sister, did you not do well on the exam?" Her eyebrows trembled as she shook her head. "Then you're being naughty and being nagged by your parents?" She lowered her head and shook it again. The driver uncle looked at her like he suddenly realized something and said with a look of understanding, "Then you quarreled with your boyfriend?" Wah! Luo Qingchen couldn't help crying as she broke out in tears. The tears that she held back were like pearls that had been cut off, falling down drop by drop. The driver uncle was surprised before anxiously saying, "Little sister, don't cry. You're still young, the best is still on the way, don't be anxious." "But I like him." The snow outside the window fell onto her face, and it was a bone-chilling cold. In this small space, she could hear the driver uncle's deep voice. She seemed to be able to let go of all her strength and cry like a child. "And you Xing. And you Xing. And you Xing," these words kept repeating in her mind, that youth who didn't care about the cycle of life and death just to stay by her side. How could he forget? It was the agreed love test. They had passed all the difficult questions to get full marks. How could he change the test paper just like that? I say, why are you this stubborn little girl?" The driver uncle said in a serious voice. "There are millions of men in the world. You can change them every day if you don't like them. Look at this uncle, I've been changed 7 to 8 times. Why change?" He took a breath before continuing, "Because I'm poor." What? After hearing the driver uncle's explanation, she cried even harder. In this impetuous world, she and An Yu Xing were like a clear stream, their love was that pure. But she couldn't love him. When they arrived at their destination, the driver uncle didn't take her money. Instead, he handed her a tissue and said seriously, "What I said just now was nonsense. You're so cute, you definitely won't be replaced. Stop talking." She took the tissue and sniffed. She wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and continued, "You don't know how to comfort people at all." As she spoke, she still stuffed the money into his hand because she had already seen the family photo of him, his wife, and his son in front of the car window. He didn't mention the ending of some stories, but that didn't mean it wasn't good. She took the elevator to the 4th floor. Xia Qingrou was waiting for her in the corridor, her expression ugly. She winked at her and said softly, "Don't worry, I know. You know?" Xia Qingrou looked at her in disbelief. Her eyes were red, and her voice was slightly nasal. Although she didn't know how she knew these things, she could tell from her expression that she knew. "The doctor said that my brother still has the ability to live a normal life, but as for people, he doesn't remember them." Xia Qing gently held her hand and said, "But the doctor said that brother's original mental problems have also improved. She probably forgot about big brother Liang Xing and no longer has a personality disorder." Chapter 14:20. And Yu Xing was holding a fashion magazine in his hand, looking like he had recovered quite well. His face was still a bit pale, but he didn't look tired. "Big brother." Xia Qingrou softly called out to him. He was a little stunned. After 2 or 3 seconds, he slowly raised his head and looked at him with a faint smile on his face. "This is Big Brother's past classmate," Luo Qingchen said the moment Xia Qingrou was about to say it. "Hello." He gave a slight nod. There was a bit of gentleness in his bright eyes, but there was also a sense of unfamiliarity. At that moment, Luo Qingchen felt her heart skip a beat and there was an indescribable sadness. Those eyes that had been burning not long ago had suddenly become very unfamiliar. This kind of unfamiliarity made her not dare look into his eyes. Every time she looked, she felt like she was suffocating. But at this moment she had to wear a smile. She looked at him and said, "Do you feel better?" Her voice was relaxed, but her hands were tightly clenched in her pocket. Xia Qing rose standing on the side slightly knit her brows, and she couldn't help tearing up at that moment. She seemed to be a bystander who understood their love the most. That kind of sadness, there was no one who understood it better than her. And Yu Xing politely put down the magazine in his hand and looked into her clear eyes. "Your eyes really are beautiful. Such a familiar look." It was like not long ago there was a moment when he was deeply infatuated with this kind of look. "You've said this before." She leaned over and looked into his delicate eyes as her lips curled slightly. "And Yu Xing, I am Luo Qingchen." The sunlight slowly came in through the window, and there were feather-like snowflakes that slowly fell down. The young man and girl looked at each other with smiles. In the eyes of outsiders, this was the best appearance of youth. With a kacha sound, the door opened. What entered her eyes was someone Luo Qingchen never would have thought of, Liang Bingbing. As well as his parents. Behind them were Mr. and Mrs. and Liang Bingbing glanced at her, her eyes filled with pride. She looked up to say something in her father Liang Jiwei's ear, and Liang Jiwei gave a thoughtful nod. Then, in the next second, Liang Bingbing charged forward and pushed Luo Qingchen away before falling into Yu Xing's embrace. "Ah Xing, you really scared us to death." And Yu Xing's brows tightly knit. He wanted to push her away, but because he was unfamiliar with this world, he stopped. He unconsciously looked at Luo Qingchen standing on the side, and there's a complicated look in his eyes. "Bing Bing, uncle and auntie, why are you so rude?" Liang Jiwei chuckled as he turned around and said to Anyang, "You've been spoiled rotten by me. You don't have any manners." Anyang quickly shook his head and said, "Brother Liang, you're being too polite. We're going to be a family in the future." "What are you talking about?" And Yu Xing's memory loss was great news for the En and Liang families. After all, it was impossible for him to accept this marriage before. But now his life was blank, it was like starting from the beginning. Then the story that belonged to him, he could make it up with his mouth. Chapter 14:21. Fiancé. And Yu Xing slightly pursed his lips as a sparkle appeared in his beautiful eyes. She unconsciously leaned back and looked down. "Hello, I'm a bit uncomfortable." "Bing Bing, why aren't you getting off Ah Xing?" Liang Jiwei looked at her with a frown. "Isn't a girl embarrassed?" I'm too excited." She reluctantly got off Yu Xing and looked at Luo Qingchen before looking at Yu Xing with an aggrieved look. "Ah Xing, I'm sorry, I made you feel uncomfortable." Although her face looked aggrieved, her heart was filled with excitement at this moment. There was finally a day when she was the dazzling female lead standing in front of Luo Qingchen, looking at her with proud eyes. It was like she was saying, "You little punk, why don't you take a look at yourself? You want to steal Yu Xing from me, dream on. Big brother has just recovered, it's better not to shake him." Xia Qing pursed her lips and slowly came forward. She took Luo Qingchen's hand and brought her to her side. Xia Qing's impression of Liang Bingbing wasn't good. What kind of character this girl had, others didn't know, but she was clear on it. "So it's classmate Xia." Liang Bingbing saw how close she was to Luo Qingchen and couldn't help taunting her. "I never thought that you would have such a good relationship with this little punk." "Punk?" Madame knit her brows as she looked at Luo Qingchen with a strange gaze. This was the gaze of an elder can't stand. "Auntie, Qingchen is my friend." Xia Qing seriously said word for word, "Her parents aren't here anymore, so her family isn't that good." "Che." Liang Bingbing gave a soft snort. "Is she a mule or a horse, doesn't she know in her heart?" Liang Bingbing's voice was filled with ridicule since Luo Qingchen had bullied her so miserably before. Not only did An Yuxing forget her, she also had the support of her elders. Let's see how arrogant Luo Qingchen can be. Luo Qingchen took a deep breath. Her eyebrows trembled slightly. Liang Bingbing was right. Every girl wanted to perform well in front of the parents of the person they liked. She was the same. However, she was born with an unyielding personality, so she still nodded her head and looked at Liang Bingbing with an indifferent and arrogant expression. The great philosopher Maslow once said, "A cultured person will understand when you point it out. An uncultured person will be aggressive if you don't lose your temper." Luo Qingchen said these words with great depth, almost effortlessly. There was not the slightest flaw in quoting the words of great foreign philosophers. By doing this, she could not only prevent Liang Bingbing from gaining the upper hand, but she could also easily remove the title of delinquent. After all, how could a delinquent girl quote a great philosopher? When Luo Qingchen looked at Mrs. An again, the look on her face was obviously different. However, Liang Bingbing was different. Her originally proud face instantly darkened. She wanted to say some ugly words, but she couldn't say a single word. After all, Luo Qingchen's sarcastic words from before had come before. At this moment, no matter what she said, she felt that her words had come true and she had become an uncultured person. Chapter 1422. An Yuxing recovered very quickly. Other than his memories, everything else went very smoothly. Luo Qingchen spent most of her time sitting in the coffee shop downstairs, ordering a cup of cappuccino. She took out her laptop and used the name Mr. L to invest in a large amount of real estate on the internet. She didn't go to school. She had already chosen to give up on the side mission. After all, to be exact, her main mission was currently a 0% completion rate. Moreover, it was a bit troublesome. The most troublesome reason was that she didn't know where to start when faced with the blank in Yuxing. Ding-ling. There was the sound of a text message that came from Xia Qingro. "Qingchen, quickly come up." Xia Qingro. Receiving the call from Xia Qingro, she knew that Liang Bingbing's group was no longer in the room. It wasn't that she was afraid of them, rather she hadn't finished with those kinds of people. As for the Liang family's ending, she had already written it down for them in her notebook. "If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll hit the snake by 3 inches and hit its vitals." Walking in the long hallway of the hospital, she couldn't help thinking. If nothing happened to An Yuxing, they should be about to get married right now. After all, with An Yuxing's stubborn personality, he would have ignored the opposition of his family and made her his bride. Qingchen. When she came in, Xia Qingro waved her hand at her. "Over here." An Yuxing and Xia Qingro sat on the bed with their legs crossed. There were pieces of white A4 paper in front of them. Luo Qingchen knit her brows in confusion as she asked, "What are you doing?" "Pi drama." Xia Qingro said with an excited look. "I sent a voice message on the internet and they said that I was suited for voice acting. They directly gave me $1,000 and took my voice." "That powerful," she said with a surprised smile. "Our Qingro is so good. But I don't seem to understand the voice acting industry." "It's fine, I'll teach you." And Yuxing looked at her with a polite and gentlemanly smile, which filled her heart with complicated emotions. A bit cold and a bit warm. Big brother is so cocky." Xia Qingro gave a light snort and pretended to be proud as she said, "I was the one who taught you all of this. Don't expose me, Poochie." She smiled and said, "All right, I won't expose you." In the next second, she handed a piece of white A4 paper to Luo Qingchen and said, Qingchen will be paired with Ling Meng. Brother will be paired with Shifeng. I will be paired with Ling Meng's sister, spiritual sacrifice." "Shifeng, you can't catch me." Luo Qingchen was surprised, being deeply attracted by An Yuxing's serious voice acting. His voice had the feeling of a floating dream, ethereal but with a particularly clean tone. Ling Meng, how do we know if we can catch it without trying? However, her dubbing was a little shaky. Shi Feng, I've already killed enough people. I'm not afraid of one more. Shi Feng, in the name of faith, in exchange for 18 years of peace and prosperity. Brushing past life and death, bearing righteousness on my shoulders. Ling Meng, how lucky am I to be able to look back and see the spring scenery you brought. Like the light in a hopeless situation, like a dream that doesn't want to wake up. Ling's sacrifice. Everything will start from the beginning. The scene ended, and Yu Xing's eyes kept sparkling, and after a few seconds, he said something that she never expected. We shouldn't have just been classmates before. Chapter 14:23. Xia Qingro jumped off the bed and said, Big brother, you remember? Luo Qingchen wasn't scared by Yu Xing, rather she was scared by Xia Qingro. It can't be that this girl took stimulants, right? And Yu Xing didn't seem like he remembered at all, that? And Yu Xing was surprised, but he unconsciously pulled Luo Qingchen's arm behind him to protect her. When he was certain that Xia Qingro didn't make any killing moves, he slowly said, Qingro, this is the hospital. Xia Qingro covered her face and got off the bed in embarrassment. She quickly apologized, sorry. She had a sweet smile as she looked at Luo Qingchen and Yu Xing. You really are in the voice acting industry. I can't. Your voice is very clean. And Yu Xing looked over and seriously looked at her with his beautiful eyes, sparing no effort in praising her. She was a bit embarrassed in front of Yu Xing at this moment. This was a very strange feeling. It was like you were the most familiar stranger to the other side. And every word he said made you feel at ease. Half a month later, Yu Xing was discharged. Actually, he had already recovered, but because of the care of the two elders of the Yin family, he was discharged that far away. And Yu Xing didn't go back to school, rather he took over Yang's company. But when it came to Liang Bingbing, his so-called fiancée, the gentle him kept rejecting his father's arrangements. At the dinner table, your Uncle Liang and I have already decided on this matter, you don't need to say anything. And Yang's words were very firm, not giving any room to back down at all. And Yu Xing put down his chopsticks and calmly said, like a youth who had walked out of a painting, but I don't like her. Although he had lost all his memories, he could deeply feel that this girl named Liang Bingbing was definitely not the person he liked. Fool. And Yang put down his chopsticks and firmly said, in short, your engagement ceremony will be on the 10th of next month. You can't let down this girl because you lost your memories. As soon as he finished speaking, he stood up angrily and walked towards the study on the second floor. And Yu Xing tightly knit his brows as a bit of panic filled his heart. At this moment, a clear voice rang out in his mind. It was like a clear spring that could extinguish the restlessness in his heart. Just listen to your father. Madame An saw Yu Xing's unwilling appearance and said in a pained voice, although this marriage is a bit political, Bingbing's appearance isn't that bad. Mrs. An naturally knows that Liang Bingbing is arrogant and willful. Her mother-in-law always doesn't want her daughter-in-law to be too delicate. However, there was nothing he could do about it. The Yin family often relied on the Liang family's help in the business circle. And now Yu Xing was the Yin family's only successor. In short, what I don't love, I will never love. He gently put down his bowl and chopstick. His head hurt. The terrible thing was that this pain did not bring him pain, but a wonderful pleasure. It was as if the more intense the pain, the blurrier the memories of the past would appear in his mind. The young girl who liked to wear a yellow sweater smiled at her with a shy smile. He couldn't see his face or hear his voice. Chapter 14:24. After returning to his room, Yu Xing locked the door with a getting. This was a kind of self-protection. For someone who had lost their memories, a sealed space could give him a strange sense of security. His mind was a bit messy and he was a bit anxious. He unconsciously took out his phone and stopped at the name Luo Qingchen. 3 seconds later, he sent her a QQ message. Long time no see, have you been busy recently? He looked at the words in the box and after thinking about it, he pressed the back button. Ching Ro said she missed you a bit, let's meet up sometime. He looked at the words in the box for a while before pressing the back button again. I miss you very much. This time, he looked at the words in the box in a daze for 5 minutes. Then, he pressed the send button in disbelief. In an instant, he felt his heart beating wildly, and even his breathing became a little hurried. After that, he immediately made a move. You've withdrawn a message. In the next second, the other party had already sent him a reply. I miss you too. Luo Qingchen's tone seemed very relaxed, but it wasn't like this. When she sat in front of the computer and saw An Yu Xing send her the words I miss you very much, she thought that he had recovered his memories. However, this expectation was ended by him in the next second. 1. The system didn't recover her affection. 2. If An Yu Xing recovered his memories, he definitely wouldn't just send a simple message on QQ saying that he missed her. So the one who was thinking of her right now was the white paper An Yu Xing who had been reborn? She suddenly felt a bit excited. Do you want to go see a movie tomorrow? That, if you don't have time, we can do it another day. No, we'll go whenever you're free. Time ticked by second. After 42 seconds, Luo Qingchen gave him a reply. Tomorrow. When she typed these 2 words, Luo Qingchen's lips curled into a faint smile. It was a wonderful feeling. It was as if they had never dated before. It was as if they had returned to the time when they knew each other. The relationships that he hadn't dated at that time seemed to be going back in time. But he didn't seem to be the An Yu Xing with his personality disorder. The next morning, she stood in front of her wardrobe for a long time. In the end, she decided to wear the yellow sweater, checkered skirt, and a navy blue jacket. Everything seemed to have returned to its original starting point. Before today, Luo Qingchen thought that although An Yu Xing had lost his memories, he wasn't a youth with a personality disorder. It seemed to be another of God's blessings, a blessing in disguise. But at this moment, standing in front of the mirror, she couldn't help but tear up. He was no longer that stubborn youth. Did this mean that he was no longer the person who would live and die for her? Suddenly, I feel so lost. It turned out that it felt so good to have someone pampering you regardless of life and death. It turned out that the paranoid and sick love was so nostalgic. Ding-ling, the sound of a text message interrupted her thoughts. Send me your location, I'll pick you up. An Yu Xing, Luo Qingchen was a bit surprised before sending her location to him on QQ. Chapter 1425. I've always had a dream where there was another girl in the dream. I asked the doctor and he said that it was the only memory I wanted to keep at the moment of life and death. Mom and Dad said that it was Liang Bingbing, but I didn't believe them. I asked Ching Ro and she didn't answer me, she just told me to follow my heart. Then I feel that girl is you. I can't take it back, sorry. Don't mind it, let's watch the movie together tomorrow, alright? Seeing in Yu Xing's text, she had the urge to tightly hug him. Ding dong. I'm here. An Yu Xing. Luo Qingchen came out and saw that his car was stopped outside. She slowly waved her hand at the security guard and the security guard let the car in. You're so fast. Luo Qingchen was sitting in the front passenger seat. She looked at An Yu Xing beside her and her clear eyes were stunned. She was so surprised that she couldn't speak. An Yu Xing's clothes were the same as when they went to EGOD's concert. They actually wore the same clothes as they did on that day so tacitly. This feeling was really good, it warmed her heart. What is it? As he drove down the long slope, he looked around and said, the place where you live, it's different from what you imagined, right? Luo Qingchen turned to him with a faint smile. An Yu Xing was the first friend to come to her house in this world. Liang Bingbing had told him many things about Luo Qingchen, most of them not good. Although he didn't believe it, he never thought that she would live in such a luxurious place. On the way they talked a lot, most of it being about school. At the entrance of the theater, he bought the tickets and popcorn before walking beside her. Most of the people passing by would look at them since beautiful things were always pleasing to the eye. But he never thought that things would be this coincidental. Liang Bingbing and her so-called sisters were also at the theater. The world was very big, but sometimes it was very small. Luo Qingchen, you vixen! When she saw Luo Qingchen beside an Yu Xing, her incomparably sharp voice rang out at the entrance of the theater. Everyone's gaze fell on Liang Bingbing, looking at her flushed face. It was like her man had been stolen by a mistress. She had her hands on her hips as she glared at her. Luo Qingchen and an Yu Xing, who had their backs to Liang Bingbing, knit their brows at the same time. An Yu Xing looked down at Luo Qingchen as he suddenly had an idea. When Luo Qingchen was about to turn and teach Liang Bingbing a lesson, an Yu Xing reached out his right hand and took her in his embrace. Getting Liang Bingbing's heart. She Luo Qingchen's Luo's Luo Qingchen's S was Luo Luo's slash Luo's Luo without knowing why. When he heard the girl beside him being called a vixen in front of everyone, he was even angrier than her. There was an unknown blazing fire in the depths of his heart that was slowly rising up. Ah Xing! Liang Bingbing's eyes popped out as she looked at an Yu Xing in disbelief. I am Bingbing. I am your fiancé. Hiss! When she said this, the surrounding onlookers all sucked in a breath of cold air. This triangular love story was really eye-catching. Chapter 1426. At this moment, everyone looked at Liang Bingbing with a look of sudden realization. It was like their eyes were saying, "Oh, so she was a fool." At this moment, the sisters standing beside Liang Bingbing didn't say a word. This was an Yu Xing, the male god in the hearts of everyone in the affiliated school. Even if one couldn't become the male god's lover, they definitely couldn't become the person the male god hated. Not to mention that Liang Bingbing relied on her good family background to be a bit of a tyrant in school. Now that she had embarrassed herself, they seemed to be taking joy in her misfortune. You all! Liang Bingbing angrily threw out the bag in her hand and angrily roared, "You all just wait!" And Yu Xing saw this and directly protected Luo Qingchen. He lowered his eyes and muttered, "Wife, let's go in. This person doesn't seem to be in a good mental state." Poochie. Luo Qingchen couldn't help laughing. Although Yu Xing's words were very tactful, his meaning was that this person seemed to be crazy. In the last row, Luo Qingchen was holding the popcorn in her hand when she saw the name of the movie. She was a bit speechless because it was called Spring in the Ears of Rice. This was a literary film and the female lead was called Fong Dao Sui. Whether it was the title or the female lead's name, it had a strong country feel to it. But this suited the theme of the literary film because it was love from the Republic of China. To be honest, the content wasn't bad, but it was a bit hypocritical. At that time, a comb, a painting, a pen, or a ribbon could be used as a token of love. Love at that time was very pure, there weren't many material conditions and there weren't many mistresses. But the male and female leads who couldn't get their love, people couldn't help feeling pity for them. There were many girls in the theater who were crying, leaning on the shoulders of the boys beside them. And Yu Xing looked at Luo Qingchen and her calmness was a bit terrifying. Not only were there no tears, her eyes weren't even red. He was a bit unwilling. He had clearly seen everyone's comments on the forum, saying that this movie was very tear-jerking, so he specially brought her to see it. Who would have thought that he would fail completely? When the film ended and the male lead closed his eyes and died, the entire set was filled with the sound of crying. Until the light was turned on and the tipsy light shone on Luo Qingchen's face. She turned around and smiled at him. "It's over." He was a little annoyed as he asked, "Is it not pretty? It looks good." "Then you don't seem to be." He pointed at a group of girls who were nestled in their boyfriend's arms. Luo Qingchen immediately understood. She chuckled softly and said, Those who have experienced a lot will not be moved to tears. Whether it was love or friendship. Coming out of the cinema, Luo Qingchen pointed to the dessert shop not far away and said, "Anyway, it's still early. Since you invited me to watch a movie, I'll treat you to a drink." And Yuxing looked at the slightly tipsy street light shining down on her face, and strange and familiar memories filled his mind. Such a night, such a glimmer, such a street, such a girl. This scene was exactly the same as the one in his dream. He nodded without any hesitation before shaking his head. "What is it?" Luo Qingchen ignored him and asked again. "I have to eat supper, but I don't want to drink a drink." "What do you want to drink?" Chapter 14:27. There were people coming and going at the food stall, and Yuxing ordered a box of beer and a few dishes. Gotcha! There was the sound of a can being opened. Luo Qingchen took 2 sips before saying with a helpless smile, "Alcohol really is a good thing." Gotcha! And Yuxing also opened a can, but he was stopped by Luo Qingchen. "But you can't drink it." "Why?" The moment her soft palm touched his fingertips, he suddenly felt a tremor in his heart. This kind of feeling that came from the depths of his heart couldn't lie to anyone. "Because you're a patient." Luo Qingchen took back her hand and drank the beer in front of her. "Patients can't drink. Losing your memories isn't considered being sick." He stubbornly picked up the can and took a sip. "But why did I lose my memories?" They all hesitated, and only Qing Ro told me. "What did she say?" "She felt a bit nervous at that moment. She had me ask you for an answer." He took a deep look at her, and each word was filled with complicated emotions. That magnetic and gentle voice made her eyes turn red. "Without memories, there's no answer." Luo Qingchen looked at him and said, "Most of your guesses are true, but the things that happened, if only one person has memories, it isn't a complete story. Memories were the best amalgamation of emotions. If one didn't even have memories, so what if they knew the answer? It was just like a movie. It was just a story told by someone else." "Yes, it is a complete story." After a while, his cool-as-water voice slowly said, "I know that the previous me liked you. Actually, love had never left, but she remembered and he forgot." "Right, the previous you liked me," Luo Qingchen said with a bitter smile. "But that was the previous you. What about now? A life without memories. Could it be considered love based on a few days of feelings? This kind of love, would he believe it? If he was so convinced, why would he ask her?" Silence, silence, silence. A deathly silence. It was only until a sharp voice rang out beside them that the silence was broken. There were screams that rang out, and Yuxing instantly pulled her behind him, vigilantly looking in the direction of the sound. A 5-year-old girl was kidnapped by a man with a knife. Her mother's face was as pale as a sheet of paper, and she collapsed to the ground. "Don't hurt my daughter, I beg you, don't hurt my daughter." Your daughter, your daughter." The man with the saber muttered in despair. "Why is your daughter still alive, but my daughter is dead? Why? Mommy, save me. Mommy, save me." The boy's collar was lifted up by the man with the knife, and his body was suspended in the air. They kept crying and struggling. "Don't cry." The sword-wielding man scolded fiercely and roared in a hoarse voice, "My daughter didn't even cry when she took her last breath. What right do you have to cry?" As he spoke, he excitedly slit the little girl's arm with the knife. Blood flowed out in an instant. Don't hurt my child." Her mother shouted with all her might, "She's only 5 years old. She's only 5 years old." Chapter 14:28. Luo Qingchen narrowed her eyes and looked at the man filled with despair. She couldn't help feeling that he was a bit sad. He was most likely a beggar, and his daughter was most likely sick to death. But even so, it couldn't be a reason for him to kill an innocent child. There are so many 5-year-old girls in this world. Could it be that you're planning on killing them all? Luo Qingchen's cold voice sounded. In this cold winter, there was no warmth at all. "Right, I want to kill them all, kill them all." The man's expression was very fierce and his dark eyes were filled with the determination to destroy the world. Reincarnation of life. Luo Qingchen gave a shrug as her lips curled into a beautiful curve. She looked up and said, "In another 5 years, if your ambition is still the same, perhaps you will personally kill your reincarnated daughter." Everyone present held their breaths when they heard this sentence, which was filled with metaphysics. Among them, there was naturally an Yu Xing who was standing in front of her. This feeling was very strange. It was like there was a treasure behind him that everyone wanted. But he had it and was proud of it. The man was stunned and his rough hands began to tremble. Really? His daughter would reincarnate? His daughter would appear in the same world as him? No, impossible. His daughter was dead, she was already dead. Her cold corpse was still in the alley where the beggars lived. She only had a small cold, but because she wasn't properly treated, she had died like this. I don't believe it! He angrily roared out as he stabbed the knife into the little girl's body. While stabbing, he shouted, "You will all be buried with my daughter." The little girl's mother shouted before fainting on the ground. Luo Qingchen knit her brows and ran over as fast as she could, jumping out. She took the child from the man's hand, but at the same time, the sharp dagger cut her arm. Blood dripped down from her fingertips drop by drop. And Yu Xing looked at Luo Qingchen like this and memories kept pouring into his mind. Although it was very blurry, he could already see Luo Qingchen's face and feel the story that once belonged to them. 30 days of waiting for each other, and then the proposition of love. A feeling of suffocation constricted his windpipe. The moment he saw Luo Qingchen's blood, his brain seemed to have opened a door to memory. His life was no longer blank. He wildly charged forward and tightly hugged Luo Qingchen. He said in a trembling voice by her ear, "Now I, and Yu Xing also like you." Ding, affection has returned to 50%. The long-awaited notification from the system made Luo Qingchen's eyes fill with hot tears. Beep, 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 beep. The sound of the police car reached their ears. The police really came at the right time. They subdued the man with the knife. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he was handcuffed. He took 2 steps before turning back to look at Luo Qingchen and asking, "You said that my daughter will be reincarnated, is that true?" His voice no longer had a trace of hostility, it was like a father asking a prayer. "Of course." Luo Qingchen slowly said, "This is called the call of love." Call of love. If there is a day when she comes back to this world, you will feel it. Chapter 1429. That night was destined to be a sleepless night. At 3:30 in the morning, Luo Qingchen's phone vibrated. "The family will arrange the engagement next week. Let's discuss what to do." And Yu Xing, although he had lost all his memories of his life, at least he remembered Luo Qingchen. He remembered that he loved her and remembered some trivial things. This kind of an Yu Xing, it was impossible for him to marry Liang Bingbing. Luo Qingchen saw an Yu Xing's text and couldn't help laughing. In the next second, she quickly typed a line of words with her fingertip. "There are 2 options for you to choose from. 1. Steal the bride, or 2. Elope." Luo Qingchen, ding dong. The next message came very quickly, and the other party sent him a question in an inquiring tone. "Then why don't you steal the bride?" And Yu Xing, she should stay by his side in a dazzling manner. "Okay." Luo Qingchen, lying in bed, she closed her eyes and her lips curled into a faint smile. She could imagine how gentle and Yu Xing's tone was when he said this. The next day, Luo Qingchen woke up early. She gradually pulled back the net she had cast in the business circle. During this time, she had bought most of the Liang family's properties in the north, while letting go of the properties in the south and south. Going back and forth, the prices of the properties had changed. The Liang family's stable stock market had become turbulent in the past few days. This was just a delaying tactic. Luo Qingchen's real goal was to buy the Liang Group's shares. Liang Jiwei as the chairman had 35% of the Liang Group's shares. For a listed company, this was already a large share. Luo Qingchen only needed to buy over 35% of her shares to become the owner of the Liang Group. This wasn't an easy matter. It was very easy for Liang Jiwei to notice large shares. Therefore, Luo Qingchen spent nearly a month to create a storm in the stock market, and Liang Jiwei didn't notice anything wrong with it. Instead, he felt happy that he could sell his 5% shares at a low price and get some cash. When Luo Qingchen bought 5% of Liang Jiwei's shares, she was not in a hurry. Instead, she bought his shares bit by bit every day. Liang Jiwei still didn't notice anything wrong when she held 40% of the shares. This was because she had opened a total of 12 different overseas accounts and divided the shares equally. As the name implied, the person who owned the most shares in the Liang Corporation was not the chairman, Liang Jiwei, but her. After making all the preparations, the next step was to prepare the clothes and luxury car for the bride. She had to be like a queen. She had to be imposing. At the same time, Liang Bingbing, who was in the dressing room putting on her bridal gown, looked like an absolute winner. Her peach blossom eyes were half closed, and the corners of her mouth were curled up. The group of so-called Sisters of Honor behind her began to flatter her again after receiving the bridesmaid's big red packet. "Bing Bing, you're so beautiful. Just like a princess. You're indeed the school flower of our affiliated high school, the princess of a rich family. I just saw a lot of celebrities coming. I'm so envious. The perfect love between the school flower and the school prince. Our family's Princess Bing Bing is many times more beautiful than that delinquent girl." Pring, the gorgeous comb heavily lined up on the dressing table. Chapter 1430. Bing Bing, I'm sorry. The fat girl in the pink bridesmaid dress apologized. "It's all my fault, I mentioned that slut. Bing Bing, don't be angry." Liang Bingbing gave a soft snort and pursed her lips. "Let me tell you, you have no face and no money. No status, and no family. What qualifications does a punk girl have to compete with me? So what if she won the limelight? Because of the relationship between the N and Liang families, she was still N Yu Xing's fiancée. This person deserved it. Who told her parents to die when she was born? Without a family background, she was just a farmer. That's right. The occupation that Liang Bingbing looked down on the most in this world was being a farmer. Being dirty every day, she was just like a punk girl like Luo Qingchen. Bing Bing is right. The fat girl had a bright smile as she immediately praised. "Look, this is a luxurious engagement ceremony. She isn't even qualified to come." The entire dressing room was filled with sounds of ridicule. That so-called bride would never have thought that this would be the last day she would become a princess. Deng, 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 deng. A familiar wedding march sounded. The N and Liang family's engagement ceremony was held at the St. Paul's Emperor Hotel in a city. The people who could walk through these doors were either rich or noble. Everyone had to have an identity card to enter, and other than the people who were invited to the wedding, only the VIPs of the St. Paul's Emperor Hotel had this card. Mr. L, who had become the ruler of a city's business circle, was naturally one of them. Luo Qingchen had arrived a day before N Yu Xing's engagement ceremony, so she was living in a luxurious suite on the top floor. There was good food and wine, everything was available. There was a black lace tube dress in the middle of the room. It was a limited edition Givenchy black wedding dress called the Pride of the Empress. The design came from the evil Empress in Snow White. Luo Qingchen couldn't help feeling that this dress was tailored for her tonight. "Honorable Mr. L, you can come out in 30 minutes. The one who said this was no one else, it was the AI robot that she had bought at a high price a few days ago. The system doesn't feel that it's AI at all." The system, which had pretended to be dead for a long time, jumped out the moment the robot appeared. His tone was sour and full of ridicule. Now, when it heard the robot speak, it jumped again. Luo Qingchen was too lazy to pay attention to her, although this robot could not be compared with the system. But at least in this dimension, it was still a pretty awesome existence. Got it. Luo Qingchen's lips curled as she put on the Empress's pride. He had snow-white skin, red lips, and a black crown. No matter where she was proud and domineering. At the same time, the wedding was about to begin. The dazzling lights in the banquet hall were instantly lit up, and Yu Xing was wearing a white suit with a black bow tie, setting off a face that would make any girl scream. At this moment, all the lights in the hall were not as dazzling as him. A young man who had walked out of a painting. Everyone present felt that he was an elegant prince who was ready to hold the hand of the beautiful princess and write a fairy tale-like love story together. However, that was not the case. Only he knew that he was not a prince. The person he was waiting for was not a princess, but a girl who belonged to him alone. Chapter 1431. The two MCs spoke one after the other on stage, looking very grand. Welcome to all the business leaders and celebrities to the engagement ceremony of Mr. and Yu Xing and Miss Liang Bingbing. Next, let's invite the most handsome groom and the most beautiful bride onto the stage. Liang Bingbing proudly held her moon-white wedding dress as she walked onto the stage with her head held high. She was a princess, the only school flower of the affiliated high school, the most perfect goddess in the hearts of girls. All of this should have belonged to her in the first place. But Luo Qingchen had stolen the limelight. But now, everything had been settled. Her wedding dress fell to the ground and she stood by Yu Xing's side like Snow White. The pearls on the wedding dress sparkled, and the large diamond ring on her hand dazzled the eyes of the girls below. Ah Sheng. She had a proud smile as she said to Yu Xing beside her in a low voice, "Although you went too far with me that day, I know that you were confused." And Yu Xing didn't respond as his beautiful eyes kept looking for that clear figure. Suddenly, he was a bit worried. This wasn't a place that anyone could come in. Even if Luo Qingchen had a bit of money, she might not be able to come in. He shouldn't have let her steal the groom. He was a bit regretful, afraid that she wouldn't be able to come. But he had already made a decision in his heart. Even if Luo Qingchen didn't come, he would still look for her. After all, in his blank life there was only her in his memories. Ah Sheng, what are you looking at? Liang Bingbing pursed her lips and bit her lip in displeasure. It can't be that you're thinking that Luo Qingchen will also come, right? So what if I am? And Yu Xing's voice was very soft, but it was a bit cold. Hee. Liang Bingbing instantly sneered and said, "Stop dreaming. What kind of status does she have to be qualified to come here? Do you know what kind of people are here today? That kind of little girl isn't even qualified to carry their shoes." At this moment, there was a raging fire burning in the depths of her heart. Now they were standing on this stage as a pair of newcomers. But her fiancé was actually thinking of another woman. Sure enough, poor women were particularly annoying. They were like dirty flies always buzzing about. Now, let's move on to the part where the prospective newcomers make their vows. What is the most important thing that an unmarried bride would like to say to her fiancé? Yo, 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 oh, pa, 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 pa. Below the stage there was an uproar and the atmosphere was very lively. However, they would never know that a woman in a black wedding dress was standing at the entrance of the banquet hall with a perfect smile on her face. That! Liang Bingbing shyly swayed her body left and right, then said with a smile, "I like you the most." Her delicate voice rang in Yu Xing's ears, and he couldn't help knitting his brows. Looks like our new year is very shy. Then let's ask the groom-to-be, what is the sentence that he wants to say to the bride the most? Silence, silence, silence. There was an awkward silence. Other than Yu Xing, everyone present felt awkward. The host saw this and quickly added, "It seems like our groom-to-be is even more shy." Chapter 1432. SSSS. Everyone sucked in a deep breath of cold air at this moment. The original teasing and applause instantly turned into whispers. Io and Yang's son is quite direct. He doesn't give old Liang any face at all. Isn't that so? I'm afraid the marriage between the two families is going to be ruined. Look at old Liang's face, it's already so dark. But I feel that this can't be blamed on An Yang's son. I heard that old Liang's daughter is very delicate. Who can take it? Although everyone was talking, they weren't as excited as Liang Bingbing. After all, she was considered half the main character today. You? What do you mean? Liang Bingbing gritted her teeth. Although she was very angry, she wasn't very forceful with An Yuxing. No matter what, she still wanted to marry him and become the most dazzling princess. Peng! There was the sound of the banquet hall door being opened. Luo Qingchen was wearing a dark black lace wedding dress and high heels inlaid with black diamond. She walked step by step from the entrance of the banquet hall to the stage. The youth narrowed his eyes and felt the blood in his body boil. That beautiful girl that belonged to him was walking against the light as she walked towards him. The delicate lace of the lace dress showed off her white legs. They were slender and straight, completely outlining her exquisite curve. Inadvertently, she touched the corner of her lips and smiled faintly at him. A smile that could overturn a city, it was used to describe this beautiful scene. Everyone's eyes fell onto her and they were filled with gasps. That kind of beauty, that kind of radiance. Duh. She slowly raised her right hand and snapped her fingers, as the robot standing at the door came in. The moment the robot appeared, someone under the stage recognized it and said in surprise, "Isn't this Gentleman V?" Gentleman V was one of the names of the robot. But Luo Qingchen liked to call it Little V. "Master, what orders do you have?" Little V's voice attracted everyone's attention. Gentleman V was priceless on the market. The master who could buy it had to be rich. "My crown is a bit crooked, help me fix it." "Yes, master." The smile on the young man's face grew wider, and his deep eyes flickered with a faint light. He slowly raised his hand and said to her, "Come here." However, Liang Bingbing standing beside him was trembling with anger. She shouted at Luo Qingchen when An Yuxing's voice fell. "Are you mistaken? This kind of lowly person can be let in? Security, throw her out. This is my engagement ceremony." Luo Qingchen had a faint smile on her face the entire time. She had bright eyes and white teeth, as well as a proud look in her eyes. "Miss Liang, I think you're mistaken." Her voice carried an absolute aura as she looked at Liang Bingbing and said, "The person who should leave is you." The people here certainly didn't know that an hour ago, she had bought 10% of the shares of the St. Paul Regal Hotel in the name of Mr. L. In other words, this was her territory. "This miss, don't say such ugly words." Liang Jiwei, whose face couldn't be any darker, stood up and looked at Luo Qingchen with a serious look. "After all, you're not qualified." Chapter 1433. "You're hilarious, you slut. You're dressed like a ghost." Liang Bingbing pointed at her eyes and angrily rebuked. "Do you know who you're talking to? Don't you know how to respect your elders? You have to be an elder worthy of respect." Her eyes trembled and she snapped her fingers at Little V. In 3050, the Liang's group didn't hesitate to fight with a holdout over a property dispute, causing the other party to unfortunately die in the dispute. In 3052, the Liang's group illegally purchased a property in North City without a permit. In 3054, the Liang's group called for donations, and the final amount was 480,000. Little V's mechanical and honest voice sounded, making Liang Jiwei's face turn red. These were the secrets of the Liang's group that no one knew in the past few years. In 3057, "Shut up!" Liang Jiwei pointed at Little V and angrily said, "A broken robot caused damage to my Liang's group's reputation. I have the right to make it disappear from this world." His eyes fell onto Luo Qingchen as he continued, "Other than that, this young Miss Luo, just wait for this Liang's court summons. You have to have the ability to kill my robot." Luo Qingchen's lips curled, and she snapped her fingers again. "As a national protection robot, my master bought me for 190 million and insured me for 1 billion. Little V's mechanical voice sounded so pleasant at this moment, and it didn't forget to add, "Uncle, you have to think carefully. 100 million. 90 million. They originally thought that the girl in front of them would be kicked out by the security guards sooner or later, but after hearing the price of 190 million, they didn't seem to think so. A broken robot for 190 million, oh my. Luo Qingchen, are you crazy about money? Liang Bingbing naturally didn't believe that a little girl who used to work in Zhao Jinshuan's bar would have 190 million. I definitely have more money than you. Haha. Liang Bingbing clapped her hands, and the way she laughed in her wedding dress looked particularly ugly. After she finished laughing, she looked at Luo Qingchen with disdain and said, "You think you're worthy of talking about money?" Bing bing. Liang Jiwei signaled with his eyes that she didn't need to say anything more. After all, in Liang Jiwei's opinion, it would be beneath his dignity to talk too much with these low-class people. Miss Luo, no matter what reason you have for coming here today, please leave immediately. Liang Jiwei stood with his hands behind his back and continued, "Otherwise, I will immediately call the police." She came to find me. Luo Qingchen had given him a signal before, telling him not to speak and to leave everything to her. But seeing these people bullying her like this, he was extremely unwilling. Xiaoxing. And Yang scolded angrily, "Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? No one can stop what I want." And Yu Xing revealed a smile. His beautiful eyes had been on Luo Qingchen the entire time. He just felt that she was especially beautiful. No matter how he looked at her, he would never get tired of looking at her. Although Yang was not very satisfied with Liang Bingbing, the An family relied on the Liang family's status in the business circle after all. Now it seemed like it was all gone. Liang Jiwei snorted coldly. He looked at Yang with extreme displeasure and said, "I don't care about your son, but it doesn't mean that you two can bully my daughter like this." As soon as his voice fell, he said to the assistant behind him, "Call the police for me." Chapter 1434. Liang Jiwei knit his brows and raised his hand to stop the assistant. He asked with a serious look, "What do you mean?" "Dad, don't say that much to this little delinquent girl." Liang Bingbing saw Liang Jiwei's hesitation and immediately rushed off the stage, angrily saying, "This Luo Qingchen was in a bar before. She's so poor, this black dress was probably picked up from the trash can. Just call the police and catch her, this kind of shameless slut." "You're saying this to a shareholder of the Emperor Hotel, don't you think it's funny?" Luo Qingchen lifted her dress and walked towards An Yuxing. When she stood on stage, her right hand was taken by An Yuxing. There was a bit of dominance in this gentleness, like he was holding a treasure. "Shareholder? Ha ha ha." Liang Bingbing laughed again. This time her laughter was wild and her face was a bit twisted as she roared, "You really are dreaming you're a shareholder? Ha ha ha." Liang Jiwei, who had always been in the business circle, had a sunken face. This girl named Luo Qingchen in front of him might be telling the truth. Because there were security guards all around the hall, but not a single one of them came forward to chase her out. At this time, one of the professionals under the stage wildly typed on the keyboard before saying in a shocked voice, "An hour ago, a 10% share of the Emperor Hotel was sold. Damn. Is this true? This girl doesn't seem to be older than 18, she can really buy the shares of the Emperor Hotel. God! Could it be that she's a hidden expert?" As soon as the final voice fell, that so-called professional pushed up his glasses and said, "You're right." "What do you mean? Clearly explain it to me." Because she was too excited, Liang Bingbing directly cursed. It was really embarrassing for a girl in a white wedding dress to say such words in front of so many people. Such a bad temper. The professional gave a soft snort and said in a lively tone, "The one who bought the 10% share is no one else but the mysterious person who bought the Golden Triangle area a few months ago, Mr. L." When he said the words Mr. L, everyone's face changed. Liang Jiwei and An Yang looked at Luo Qingchen in disbelief. Luo Qingchen sighed, raised her eyebrows and said, "That's right." Hiss, another breath of cold air. After all, probably no one present would have thought that Mr. L, who controlled the commercial lifeline of the entire Golden Triangle, was actually an 18-year-old girl. How rich and capable did he have to be in order to have such incredible achievements at such a young age? How is this possible? How is this possible? Liang Bingbing's eyes widened as her lips trembled uncontrollably. She couldn't be more familiar with Luo Qingchen. Luo Qingchen used to be a lowly delinquent girl who wore heavy makeup and stayed at the school gate regardless of wind or rain for 2,000 yuan. How could it be Mr. L? No, that's impossible. They must have made a mistake. Anyone in this world could be Mr. L, but it was impossible for Luo Qingchen. You're lying. Liang Bingbing shouted out as she threw the red wine in her hand at Luo Qingchen. She angrily said, "I want to tear apart your ugly face." Ping ling pang lang. And Yu Xing reached out to block it, but a piece of glass accidentally splashed onto Luo Qingchen's neck. It was scratched and there was a bit of blood, and Yu Xing trembled as his deep eyes lit up. Chapter 1435. Actually, when Luo Qingchen heard the notification from the system, she was inexplicably moved. At this moment, she suddenly realized something else. Even if everything came back to square one, even if he didn't know her, he had never let her be hurt at all. That youth with a personality disorder, before he lost his memories, did he leave behind the only protection and love he had for her? Luo Qingchen looked up. When she was about to say something, she saw that in Yu Xing's beautiful eyes had a trace of darkness in them. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the wound on her neck, as his cold fingers softly moved over her waist. He lowered his head and closed his eyes. In front of everyone, he kissed her on the neck. The clean youth in the white suit gave people the feeling that he was a vampire in the night, sucking the blood of the evil queen. Falling together, falling together. When her shocked mind was pulled back to reality, she suddenly thought, Yu Sheng, and big, court, wide, mass, of, down, kiss, her. The surrounding was terrifyingly silent. The rich red wine came out, accompanied by the taste of blood on the tip of his tongue. He really wasn't willing to let her go, not willing to let her go for a second. All the gentleness slowly disappeared at this moment. The Yu Xing, who only loved Luo Qingchen, was back. After a few seconds, he reluctantly looked at her. His slender fingers came up and pushed the hair on her cheek to her ear as he softly said, "This way, it won't bleed." Luo Qingchen was stunned. The aura of a queen with countless halos had been completely suppressed by the youth beside her. His every frown and smile had the terrifying aura of a king, protecting her by his side. Ah! 3 seconds later, Liang Bingbing gave a wild scream. Like a lunatic, she threw her veil, earrings, and jewelry to the ground before stomping on them. Upon seeing this, Mrs. Liang hurriedly stepped forward and hugged her daughter. While comforting her, she did not forget to say to Luo Qingchen, "So what if you are Mr. L? You have to pay the price for bullying my baby daughter." If it was under other circumstances, Liang Jiwei would probably say that Madame Liang was soft-hearted. But at this moment, Liang Jiwei clearly stood on the side of his wife and daughter. He angrily rebuked Luo Qingchen, "You witch, as long as my Liang group exists, I will definitely make you pay for what you did today." When he saw his daughter being bullied so miserably by an inexplicable person, as a father, Liang Jiwei could no longer bear it. In his eyes, his little princess should be doted on and protected. She could only bully others, but no one could ever bully her. Luo Qingchen dragged out a long sound. The curve of her mouth was just right. Her pair of bright eyes looked at Liang Jiwei and said, "Then you may have to say goodbye to your Liang group today." Those who were watching the excitement whispered to each other again when they heard Luo Qingchen's words. "Suddenly I feel a bit horrified. Now that it is confirmed that the girl is Mr. L, then the credibility of her words is very good. Yeah. I heard that the Liang Group is not doing very well recently, and the stock has fallen greatly. TSK, this girl won't really beat the previous wave to death on the beach, right? It's hard to say. She can have such achievements at her age. If she claims to be number one in the business circle, no one dares to claim to be number two. Chapter 1436. Ridiculous, really ridiculous. Liang Jiwei could no longer maintain a steady image, but he was completely angry and roared at Luo Qingchen. Why? What qualifications do you have to say this? I am the chairman of the Liang's group. What about you? Who do you think you are? In the business circle of City A, there were naturally people who were more powerful than him, but it did not mean that he was not strong. The gap between the strong was very small. Even if he was not as good as Mr. L, it did not mean that he had no status in this circle. Why? Luo Qingchen gently raised her eyes and looked at Liang Jiwei with an imposing manner. Because I own 40% of the shares of the Liang's group. Do you think that is enough? What did you say? Liang Jiwei's eyes were straight, and he looked at her with an incredible face. Everyone looked at Luo Qingchen in shock, and their eyes fell on her. What did she mean? Did she acquire the shares of the Liang's group? And Yang, who was standing not far away, narrowed his deep eyes slightly. This was the first time he looked at Luo Qingchen, who looked only 18 years old in front of him. At this moment, he did not doubt her words. Looking at your expression, I should have to explain it to you. Luo Qingchen made a symbolic snap to little V. A mechanical voice resounded throughout the banquet. There are a total of 12 overseas accounts under the master's name, and a total of the shares of the Liang's group. Little V also paused appropriately and continued, therefore, the master currently has the highest administrative power over the Liang's group. Everyone present was completely stunned for a second, and then there was a sigh. Oh my God! Since Mr. L has acquired more than 40% of the shares of the Liang's group, how did she do it? Don't call her Mr. L, she is obviously a little girl. This time, old Liang is going to suffer a setback because of this little girl. This is the case in business. Winning and losing are ups and downs. Impossible. Liang Jiwei shook his head very heavily and said excitedly, It's absolutely impossible. Whether it's possible or not, it's not up to you to decide. Luo Qingchen raised her hand, a glimmer of light flashing through her beautiful eyes. She waved her hand at little V, and an LCD screen immediately appeared in front of little V's chest. On it was a company sale agreement that she had drafted. When Liang Jiwei saw the equity book on the screen, his angry face gradually became frightened and uneasy. Dad, that's impossible. He was already as cold as a rag doll. He sat on the ground and cried, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. She must be lying. She must be lying. Deceiving yourself is the most successful thing you've done in your life. Luo Qingchen shrugged and looked at little V. I'm sure. Press the button to confirm the sale and the Liang Group will enter the transaction. All property market developments will be halted, and all stocks under your name will be suspended. Little V's every word shook Liang Jiwei's heart, but he was still unwilling to admit it. But the phone in his pocket was vibrating like crazy, as if it was telling him his Liang Group was over. He had lost to an 18-year-old girl. He had lost to the little punk that his daughter had described. She looked at the helpless Liang Jiwei in her gorgeous black clothes, with the look of an absolute winner in her eyes, as her lips curled slightly. And Yu Xing tilted his head and muttered in her ear, My girl, she's so dazzling that I'm a bit afraid. Afraid of what? Chapter 1437. The winner didn't need any explanation. Luo Qingchen was the most dazzling person at the Emperor Hotel tonight. As for Liang Jiwei and his family, they had become a veritable clown. After several months of planning, it was all for her to stand at the peak today. She stood at a height that those who had insulted her verbally would never be able to reach. The next morning, all the major newspapers published the news of the Liang Group going bankrupt. There was no timely help, there were just famous people in the business circle throwing stones at someone who was down. This circle was just this cold. It wasn't wrong to say that everyone would push a wall that was down. When Luo Qingchen learned of this news, it was already afternoon. The sun shined down on her and the snow on the ground gradually melted. The spring of everything was about to come. After the Liang Group fell, and Yu Xing's father naturally wanted to win over Luo Qingchen. But because he had been too negligent with her before, he couldn't put down his old face to personally look for her. Therefore, at a certain dinner a few days later, An Yang gave Yu Xing a piece of red braised pork with a smile. "Ah Xing, eat more. You're so thin after being sick." And Yu Xing nodded with a smile. "Thank you, Dad." As for his memories, other than Luo Qingchen, he didn't have any complete memories. Most of the other people's memories didn't exist, but there would be fragments from time to time. But most of the fragments were very vague. At this moment, drinking the hot fish soup and eating the red braised pork his father gave him, he felt the warmth of his family. And it was quite good. But An Yang's next words were like a splash of cold water on An Yu Xing's head. "This is too thin. What if young Miss Luo doesn't like it?" At this moment, it was as if there were 10,000 grass mud horses galloping across his heart, bouncing back and forth in his heart. "Dad, you, eat more, eat more." And Yang didn't feel awkward at all. He still had a smile as he gave him food. "This young Miss Luo seems like a good girl, you have to take care of her." And Yu Xing gave a strange nod as his lips curled into a smile. What he said sounded right, but why did it feel so fake when An Yangkong said it? A month later, Luo Qingchen and An Yu Xing's wedding was on the agenda. They did not get married in China, nor did they invite guests from all over the world. Instead, the wedding was held on a small island. There was a church, a few important relatives, and a few close friends. Those who had left the business circle. She suddenly felt that such a wedding was so pure. "You look especially good in a wedding dress." She wore a pure white wedding dress and landed on the lush green lawn. She took his wrist and smiled sweetly. "Then, do you think I look better in a black wedding dress or a white one?" And Yu Xing thought for a bit before saying with a smile, "You look good in anything, but I like you wearing white." "Why? When you wear black, your aura is too strong. I always feel like nothing in this world can trouble you, and you don't need anyone's protection." He softly patted her arm before continuing, "I want to protect you every moment of my life." Sometimes, the most sincere vow wasn't made when exchanging rings, but when there was responsibility. Chapter 1438. Returning to a city, the original Mr. L in the business circle instantly became Mrs. N. Everyone expressed their heartfelt blessings to this golden couple, and called Luo Qingchen a genius in the business circle. Although this name was not domineering at all, she liked it very much. Before going abroad, she entrusted a lawyer with full authority to deal with several things, and after returning home, there were results. Luo Qingchen used some abnormal means to use the shares of Liang's group in her hands to directly declare it bankrupt. The money converted from selling the shares was all distributed to her employees. After all, it was not her intention to make them unemployed. However, if this group still existed, she would really see it as an eyesore. Liang Jiwei naturally and resolutely sued her, but because of the sudden break of the capital chain, his funds could not be turned over. In less than a week, he reached the point of selling his property. This kind of predicament, not to mention hiring a lawyer, even surviving was a difficulty. As a last resort, he could only convert all the real estate in his hands into funds and flee a city. On a certain train, Liang Bingbing in dirty clothes walked behind Liang Jiwei, and beside her was the once incomparably beautiful Mrs. Liang. Unfortunately, things were still the same, but people had changed. "Sorry, this is a first-class carriage." The waitress looked them up and down, but said to them in a very gentle tone, If you only have standing tickets, you can move to the second-class carriage and sit down. Okay. Liang Jiwei nodded again and again, but his daughter Liang Bingbing did not intend to leave. I don't want to go. Her voice was a bit sharp, and it sounded very harsh. She shook her hand and said, "The carriage over there is dirty and smelly, I don't want to go." She hated very much. However, this kind of hatred was of no use. She had no choice but to accept her fate. Listening to the other side, the waitress's face immediately relaxed, and said very seriously, "Our train, whether it is first class or second class, has been carefully cleaned, and we respect every passenger. But, if this young lady does not have a ticket, please leave the first-class carriage immediately." "You!" Liang Bingbing fiercely glared and angrily said, "Snob! Then you have to be a person." Luo Qinchin, who was sitting in the business-class carriage, pushed up her big sunglasses and slowly walked past Liang Bingbing. She gently pushed down her glasses, then immediately put them back on. The corners of her mouth curved into a beautiful arc as she said, TSK, today's weather is really good. I'm in a really good mood." "Wife." There was a gentle voice that slowly came from behind. And Yu Xing's white shirt attracted everyone's attention. "Slow down a bit," he gently called out to her. He walked beside her and dotingly held her hand. "It wouldn't be good if you were to accidentally lose it and get caught by bad people." As he spoke, he did not forget to glance at Liang Bingbing from the corner of his eyes. The next second, she flipped her long hair and said, "Even the bad guys need to have the ability to do so." After all, at this moment, the bad guys they were talking about looked like rats crossing the street. They were not worth mentioning at all. Liang Bingbing clenched her fists angrily and was about to curse like a shrew. The waiter beside her hurriedly said, "Miss, please leave quickly. AI, let's go. Liang Jiwei forcefully pulled her hand and quickly disappeared at the end of the carriage. Luo Qinchin gave a cold snort and proudly nodded before heading in the direction of the business-class carriage. The train shuttled back and forth with beautiful scenery along the way, just like her life. There were times when it was just right. Chapter 1439. I don't understand what it means to be just right, I just don't want to let down or be let down. I won't retreat when it's time to hug and I definitely won't cry when it's time to laugh. And Yu Xing, I have been a very rebellious person since I was young. Before my big brother died for me, I hated him a bit. Or it couldn't be said a bit, it should be said that I hated him a lot. He seemed to have the aura of a main character since he was born, directly grabbing the model of a house when drawing lot. As for me, I grabbed a small knife. It was probably from that day onwards that my big brother and I had different paths of fate. He was destined to be a dazzling man and I was destined to be nothing. There were many people who gave him love letters in school, although there were quite a few who gave me. But he was different from me. He was the perfect student in the eyes of the teachers and the perfect male god in the eyes of the girls. As for me, I was just handsome and a bit like a ruffian. I liked hearing the sound of a knife cutting through skin until it entered my veins, giving me the pleasure of a ding. It was like no one in this world could understand me. They all thought that I was rebellious, unreasonable, and arrogant. Only Big Brother understood me. He knew that I just wanted to be valued by my parents. Even if they didn't value me, just taking a look was good. But it was a pity that they never looked at me. They even let me stay out all night when I wasn't even 10 years old, and they never sent anyone to find me. I seemed to be the shame of the family, a bloodline that they weren't willing to acknowledge. Until Big Brother's death made them see my existence. Even though the things they said in the first few months were still as unpleasant as ever. For example, "Why didn't you die? Why didn't you go to hell instead of your big brother? What meaning is there in you living? You should also die. Die, at least your big brother won't be alone." These sobbing and resolute words were in my ears day and night, and no one knew that I was sadder than any of them. Because Liang Sheng was the only person in this world who loved me. The toys I didn't get, the love I didn't get. He used his identity as a big brother to make up for the gap in my life. I loved everything about him, but at the same time, I loved everything about him. His death proved that there was no one in this world who loved me anymore. At that time, I didn't even know the meaning of my life, but the words he said to me before he died were branded in my mind. Ah Xing, you have to live on, for me. The name Ah Xing is the nickname he likes to call me. At that time, his parents would always call me by my full name. The words in Yu Xing have become the rhyme that I hate the most. But even so, even if there is no hope for me to live on in this world, I must live on. For my big brother, for the other and Liang Xing to be able to live in this world, I will do my best to live. Moreover, he had to live well. In just half a year, I went from being violent and unreasonable to being gentle and sensible. My grades went from last place to first place in the entire year. I have to say, at least in terms of studying, I have a certain degree of genius physique. It was just like how some people were suited for running, some for swimming, and some for playing musical instruments. Chapter 1440. My parents probably saw my brother's shadow in me, so their attitude towards me changed 360 degrees. They no longer said unpleasant things, and even seemed to care about me and care about my situation at school. This feeling was very strange. It wasn't that I couldn't feel the warmth, but that this warmth came too late. It was a bit fake, but I wanted to accept it. People who grew up in darkness yearned for sunlight. As long as it was a light that could shine into my heart, I wanted to have it. Luo Qinchen was that light. When I met her, it was already the 6th or 7th year since I changed from a rebellious youth to a gentle youth. My first impression of her wasn't good, because I felt like I could see a shadow of myself in her. I hated myself at that time, because if it wasn't for that terrible self, my brother wouldn't have died. But on the other hand, my personality already made up for my stubbornness. Once I got into a fight, I would fight to the death. Normal people say that you won't turn back until you hit the wall. I was probably the kind of person that would bleed even if I hit my head. I would still walk forward with my own blood. Therefore, I went to wait for her. The time was the same as when she waited for me, a full 30 days. When we met again, she gave me a different feeling, like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon. At that moment, I felt that she and I were the same kind of person. At least, we were the kind of people that changed from bad children to good children. The way we interacted with each other was very strange, and we made a bet for the so-called love test. Who would fall in love with who first in the future? I always thought that someone like me who looked gentle on the outside, but was actually cold and heartless, would definitely win. But what I didn't expect was that I actually lost so badly. Every time I saw Sun Yan talking to her in school, my heart would feel especially restless. It was a feeling of burning desire. This feeling gradually swallowed up all of my reason, making me filled with hostility towards Sun Yan. What was funny was that his hostility towards me was far greater than my hostility towards him. He hated me and all the people in the family to the bone. At first, I didn't know about this hatred, because all of my thoughts were on how to make Luo Qinchen fall in love with me. Efforts to fever, efforts to let her worry, efforts to keep her in my side. I found that I had unknowingly changed. I was no longer that gentle and elegant young man. I was no longer like an older brother. Instead, I'm a bit like myself. The original nature of the little devil that had been restrained in his body for a long time gave Sun Yan no chance. However, after doing so much, I didn't think that it was related to Sun Yan's identity. I didn't expect that he would work with Liang Bingbing to harm her and make me think that she had abandoned me. In this world, I'm not afraid of anything. The only thing I'm afraid of is being abandoned by her. For many days after that, whenever he thought of that feeling, his heart would unconsciously twitch. But at that time, the pain was 1,000,000 times worse than before, coupled with the suffocation in his heart. I vaguely remember that when I was lying on the operating table, I only thought of one thing. I don't want to live without her. I don't want to live at all. Just let me die. Let me get away from this pain that is beyond what a human can bear. Just as I felt my body start to feel light, Xia Ro's voice entered my ears. She said, brother, Qingchen said she only likes you. Chapter 1441. I felt my heart skip a beat as if I had heard the voice of redemption. I opened my eyes and looked at everyone's shocked expression. I could faintly hear her clear voice from the earpiece. She said, "Wait for her to come back." I said, "Okay." This was a promise. Even Li Guang, the blood in my body, had to firmly believe in this promise. Therefore, when Su Nian appeared in front of me and wanted to kill me, I wasn't afraid at all. Because I knew he couldn't kill me. I could feel the blood flowing out of my body drop by drop, but my strong will to live drove me to press the nurse's bell even if I was stabbed in the back of my hand. Su Nian probably never thought that a person who lost 2,000 cubic centimeters of blood could still live in this world. Of course, he wasn't the only one who didn't think of it. Everyone present didn't think of it. When I knew she knew why. The moment I closed my eyes, I was in her arms. Once upon a time, I said to myself, if she didn't want me, if she walked into the wedding hall holding another man's hand one day, I would cause a scene. In that case, I would definitely go and cause a ruckus, and then use a dagger to pierce my own heart, and die in her arms. This was the script where she didn't love me. However, the script in real life was, the person Luo Qingchen loved was me. Whether it was me who had memories or me who lost them. Actually, when she walked into my line of sight on the first day I lost my memories, I knew that our relationship wasn't normal. This feeling was like there was a touch of sweetness in the air, and I suddenly became a bit nervous. I thought I should differentiate who I liked. At least, Liang Bingbing wasn't. Although I could only passively accept everything without memories. I accepted my parents' arrangement and accepted the so-called engagement ceremony. But, passively accepting it didn't mean I couldn't take the initiative. I used all the methods I could think of to test her feelings, to test our relationship. Until, when she was saving a little girl in front of me, the back of her hand was accidentally cut by a homeless man. The moment the bright red blood dripped down, I heard the voice in my heart. Memories rolled out from my mind and filled my mind bit by bit. I was sure that she was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. However, she was even more domineering than I had imagined. I always thought that she would choose to elope with me, but I didn't expect that she would choose to steal the bride. After thinking about it, I decided that it was a good thing. At least I could introduce her to everyone. In this lifetime, my wife will only have one name. Luo Qingchen. I always thought that the main character of this engagement ceremony would be me. I would handsomely hold her hand, protect her, and tell everyone that she was the one I loved. Unexpectedly, she was the one who was shining brightly. At that moment, she seemed to have attracted the attention of everyone present. Her every word carried an aura that no one else had. She had fought a beautiful battle against the Liang Corporation. From the beginning to the end, she had not lost even once. Suddenly, she was no longer the girl I had to protect, but a girl I was proud of. All his memories overlapped at this moment. All the things related to her played in his mind like a movie. The first time they met, the first time they held hands, the first time they kissed, the first time they parted. It turns out that we have been through so much. It turned out that I liked her that much. So. Chapter 1442. Ku and Yu Xing. The small theater that hasn't been seen in a long time is here again. The small theater will be updated from time to time. Everyone, please wave the light sticks in your hands and let the system see your enthusiasm, alright? It was pitch black and there wasn't a single light stick waving. The system felt a bit awkward. And Yu Xing. Yao, check it out. Everyone is really enthusiastic, even the system is excited. Let's enter today's topic. which is our 10 questions interview with our personality disorder school hunk and Yu Xing. There's no personality disorder now. And Yu Xing answered honestly. First question, use an idiom to describe yourself. After 3 seconds of silence, he said, personality disorder. The system felt like it had been tricked. Second question, when was the saddest time in your life? When you saw the photo Sun Yan sent. He knit his brows and softly touched his chest, as his face became a bit pale. Ah, the system won't ask such an extreme question. Although it didn't know how extreme this question was. Thank you. Third question, who is the person you hate the most in this world? Sun Yan. It seems like Sir School Hunk doesn't hesitate at all. And I almost lost her twice because of Sun Yan. He didn't even dare think about it. If his heart had stopped at that time, what would she have done? Fourth question, what did you feel when you saw her for the first time after losing your memories? School Hunkin had thought about this question for a long time, but he still gave a very domineering answer in the end. Love at first sight. In his blank life, he fell in love with a girl at first sight. He felt that he should fall in love at that moment. Fifth question, do you have any comments on her black wedding dress? Beautiful, queen, full of aura. Short is always everything. Sixth question, what do you think of your love rival Sun Yan? I understand his hatred. But for Mrs. N, if love is mixed with hatred, it is an insult to the word love. He isn't qualified to love her. A handsome. Seventh question, what is the most shameful thing you have ever done? Once when we went abroad for a holiday, Mrs. N was chatting happily with a foreigner. When the foreigner went swimming, I took away his underwear and shredded it angrily. The system felt the so-called personality disorder and was a little scared. Eighth question, concerning Xia Qingro, what kind of girl do you think she is? My best sister, a very, very good girl. But in the end, the story of Cinderella and the prince was too melodramatic. System notification. Little girl Xia Qingro's story is very perfect, okay. Ninth question. At the end of the story, when you met Liang Bingbing again on the train, you called her your wife so loudly. I did it on purpose. The corners of his lips curled up as he said, I felt very proud and wanted to show off my wife. Cough cough, it's really 666. The system felt that it was lucky that Liang Bingbing did not die from anger. 10th question, say something you want to say to her. If I can die by your side, I wouldn't have come to this world in vain. Chapter 1443. She blinked and blinked again. She never thought that she would come back like this. God! How did she die? Does the host want to see the video after you died? Of course. Luo Qingchen knit her brows in a depressed manner as she pursed her lips. Can I see the video before I died? The video before you die will be repeated. She gave an oh sound in her heart. It was a bit like watching a drama. But she really didn't understand. She was 33, she was in her prime, what was wrong with her? In her memories, she was on a trip with an Yu Xing. She was sleeping on the plane. Could it be, after that, the bronze mirror flashed with blue light and the scene in the mirror gradually became clear. Tens of thousands of feet in the air, she was covered in a blanket as she fell asleep in an Yu Xing's arms. Suddenly, the water on the table stirred and the plane fell at a 90-degree angle. And Yu Xing lying beside her opened his eyes slightly. He tightly hugged her and his deep eyes were filled with a pampering gentleness as he softly patted her head. Don't be afraid. Pung! With a loud sound, the bronze mirror turned dark. When it lit up again, there was a ruin in front of her. Firemen were everywhere, as well as reporters reporting the news. This was a major plane crash. After the plane flew over the Pacific Ocean, it fell onto a barren island. It's a pity that there were no survivors on the plane. As soon as his voice fell, the bronze mirror gradually dimmed and turned back into a broken mirror. AI, this is the legendary not knowing how you died. Luo Qingchen blinked. Dying in my sleep. But in Yu Xing's final move was so warm. A host, don't you think it's great? A painless death with your lover. Asterisk caret asterisk. Luo Qingchen rolled her eyes. If I was 99 years old and not 33, I would think it's great. The following is a summary of the mission. Host, please properly look over it. Name, Luo Qingchen World. Sir School Hunk with Personality Disorder. Mission completion rate, 50% due to the host's failure in the previous side mission. Not only will you not receive any experience points, you will also be deducted 500 points. Currently, he had 4 items in his portable space. Exquisite Ring, 9-section Moon Whip, Moon Glass Fan, and Phoenix Dance Sword. Permanent Ability. Space and Time Freeze LV2 Upgrade. Exchange Points. 3,000 plus 5,000 equals 8,000 base points. 40-inch knock. Luo Qingchen felt very angry. She couldn't finish the task in this lifetime. Her experiences in these planes had almost made her forget who she was and why she was doing these things. However, she was quite happy. It was as if he was accompanying a person through all kinds of love stories. It was like an exceptionally beautiful symphony, playing bit by bit. The system completely ignored her complaints and continued to announce the contents of the mission. The host's 26th mission panel is below. In the next second, the image in the bronze mirror changed. Mission rating, B experience gained, 500 female lead. Luo Qingchen, thinking of clear dust, male lead. Wen Yanchen, half-warm cup, supporting female lead. Fang Qianmeng, cute little fairy, supporting male lead. Hiyuan, no words, mission content. Return to 3 months before the female lead's death and obtain the love of the male lead Wen Yanchen. Side mission. Make up for the previous host's regrets and take back what was lost. Chapter 1444. Voice Acting, the Voice Acting Circle. This was Luo Qingchen's first reaction when she received the memories. Wasn't this the PAI scene that Xia Qing Ro had taught her before? As expected, there was always a connection between different worlds. The previous host grew up in a scholarly family. Her father was a university professor and her mother was a violinist. She had an older sister named Luo Yingo. Luo Yingo had inherited all the good points of her parents when she was born. She had the cold and arrogant aura of an older sister. She had an absolute advantage in height and long legs that were 1.75 centimeters tall. This made her a ballet dancer who could stand on her toes. But the previous host wasn't that lucky. With a 15-centimeter difference, the previous host didn't have the qualifications to be an older sister. Even her parents and older sister doted on her like a little lowly doll. This made her very annoyed, but when she was doing voice acting on the internet, she discovered a new world for herself. She didn't have an advantage in height, but she had an absolute voice. She could freely change her voice between different tracks. With this voice, she could be a singer, a crosstalk actor, or a skit actor. But in the end, she chose to become an online voice actor. Why? Because she felt like she would die if she saw the light. Then the only job that could display her voice without having to show her face was voice acting. The previous host had polished her voice for half a month at home and finally settled on the voice of an older sister. Because her normal voice was clear, this coldness had nothing to do with an older sister's voice. Therefore, she used her favorite older sister's voice, which was what the circle called an attack voice. The previous host's voice acting path was very smooth. When she was invisible, she could only send her recorded voice to some clubs and apply for some roles. She never thought that there would be so many people looking for her. Until Soul Sacrifice, which gave her the title of the strongest female attack voice in the circle. Moreover, she received an invitation from one of the most famous clubs on the internet, King's Landing. A year later, she became the #1 sister. There were many people who praised her, but there were also many people who slandered her. As the saying goes, the amount of praise you receive is the amount of slander you receive. But the internet trolls weren't the scariest. the scariest were the sisters in real life. As winter approached, King's Landing accepted a play called Sword Dance Clear Song. The female lead, Feng Wu, had already been confirmed to be played by the original host, but the supporting female lead still hadn't been found. At this time, the boyfriend of the original host, also known as He Yuyen, speechless. King's Landing's number 1 came to her for help, wanting to recommend someone for the role of a supporting female character. As the host, Luo Qingchen didn't forget to curse in her heart. Did the original host's eyes get hit by a soldier? At that time, the host really liked He Yuyen. It was probably because they often did voice dubbing together, so they had deep feelings for each other. The big brother and big sister of King's Landing had become the best couple in the hearts of the fans. The host agreed to He Yuyen's request and explained the situation to the president. In the end, the president agreed to let her audition, but Qian Meng didn't just want the supporting female role, she wanted the role of the female lead, Feng Wu. She was a bit famous in the voice acting circle, taking first place in the last Most Beautiful Voice Acting competition. She had countless photos that had been filtered and had countless otaku fans. She didn't look bad, but her makeup was a bit heavy. Fang Qianmeng's voice was alright, but her childish voice was too heavy. After the president Yu heard her dry voice, she felt that she wasn't suited for the role of Feng Wu, so she explained this to the previous host. Chapter 1445. She angrily went to He Yuyen, but she never thought that He Yuyen would directly say to her, "I feel that Meng Meng is suited for this role." At the end of his voice, he was silent for a bit before continuing, "After all, she has looks." The previous host was even more furious after hearing this. This was the voice acting industry, not the entertainment industry. It didn't depend on looks, alright? The previous host went to the president Yu and told her not to use this person if she wasn't suited. She never thought that after Fang Qianmeng learned of this, she would directly rain with pearls in the broadcast room. Every word she said was aimed at the previous host, saying that the previous host was bullying her because she was the number 1 sister of King's Landing. She diligently recorded the entire script and sent it to him. Even the male lead, No Words, felt that she was more suitable for the role. But they never thought that the number 1 sister would be unwilling to give up the role for her own benefit. Instantly, Fang Qianmeng's broadcast room exploded. All kinds of otakus saw the girl crying on the screen and they all angrily became keyboard warriors. The previous host's Weibo that she almost never used was completely attacked by trolls in a single night. Actually, there were many people who liked the previous host's voice, but the previous host had never done anything other than voice acting. Whether it was a career or a fan base, they all needed to be managed. Without management, they wouldn't have any cohesion. This was something that the previous host didn't do enough. Therefore, when the pressure of public opinion came, she couldn't do anything and could only watch as everyone pushed her down. Not only that, because of the terrifying pressure of public opinion, she was temporarily replaced by King's Landing. The role of Feng Wu fell into Fang Qianmeng's hands and she acted as a couple with He Yuyen. When Sword Dance Clear Song was broadcasted, the response wasn't very good. Perhaps it was because normal people had ears. Fang Qianmeng didn't show Feng Wu's dominance. But since there was no comparison, everyone couldn't say anything and most of them expressed their support. King's Landing didn't want the popularity of this drama to decrease, so they held an offline press conference. At the press conference, when Chen Yuyen announced that Fang Qianmeng was his girlfriend, the topic reached a new height. The previous host who was sitting in front of the computer was filled with rage, almost having a heart attack. At this moment, she was somewhat disgusted with her own voice. She stubbornly believed that it was this voice that caused her to lose everything. Although his family had been sent to the hospital, they still couldn't be saved. In fact, the original owner didn't know that even when the wall was down, there was an invitation from the Drunken Bliss Club in the mailbox. The person who invited her was none other than the number 1 cold god in the dubbing industry, Half-Warm Cup. This person never posted anything on Weibo, but he had close to 6 million followers. All the dramas he acted in were popular works, and he was hailed as the world's #1 person with an incomparably deep voice. Unfortunately, the original owner didn't see this email. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been angered to death. Perhaps there would be a day where he could turn things around. After the previous host died, Fang Qianmeng and He Yuyan became the best couple online. However, some people started with their looks. If they didn't have talent, they still wouldn't be able to reach the peak. From then on, for 10 consecutive years, there was only one name for the best voice acting online. That was Half-Warm Cup. Chapter 1446. In the 10th year, he finally appeared at the awards ceremony. When he picked up the trophy, he said a very profound sentence: 10 years of life and death. If you don't think about it, you won't be able to forget it. System, is Half-Warm Cup talking about the previous host? No one knows the answer to this question, but the host can ask him yourself. So, does the male lead have any affection for the previous host? No. He just admires the previous host's voice. It doesn't reach the level of liking her. Luo Qingchen thought about it and felt it was normal. After all, the previous host and Half-Warm Cup had never met before, so it was hard to say whether she liked him or not based on his voice. Sitting in front of the computer, the QQ icon flashed. It was from He Yuyan. Numpy. She didn't get even with him, and this scum came to find her. Actually, according to the previous host's memories, He Yuyan did have a very ambiguous relationship with the previous host, and he also said to the previous host that she would be his girlfriend. The previous host happily agreed. Answer. But their relationship was only online. It was said that one of them didn't have any feelings for each other. They really couldn't be considered boyfriend and girlfriend. Luo Qingchen shrugged. She first went to the kitchen to make herself a cup of warm milk. During this time, the QQ's D sound kept ringing. When she returned to her seat, she held the cup of milk in her left hand and calmly opened He Yuyan's chat with her right hand. There were a total of 5 or 6 messages, but the tone of the last few messages was bad. No words. I heard that the supporting female lead for Sword Dance Clear Song hasn't been decided yet. I have a candidate here. There's no problem with her popularity and strength. Go tell you tomorrow. Zzz. Luo Qingchen unconsciously shook her head sitting in front of the computer. Her heart ached for the previous host's gaze. He Yuyan's tone was clearly commanding. Just by looking at the meaning between the lines, it made people have the urge to slap him twice. But she wasn't impulsive. The other side seemed even more impulsive. No words. Are you there? No words. What the hell are you doing? No words. Hurry up and reply to me, the girl is still waiting. What are you dawdling for? No words. Hey, can you not come online when you're not around? You don't want others to find you an eyesore. No words. F***CK. After Luo Qingchen scrolled to the bottom of the chat box, she couldn't help admiring the tolerance of the original owner. She finally deserved to be pushed down by everyone. If you don't cherish yourself, why should others cherish you? Based on He Yuyan's tone, she had 10,000 reasons to believe that this man was definitely a scumbag in real life. The next second, Luo Qingchen took a sip of milk and slowly typed a word in the chat box. Get lost. Then, he moved the cursor to the words, no words, and right-clicked, blacklist and disappear from the other party's list. After completing the series of actions, she did not forget to click on her signature and type a paragraph. For those who don't bring their brains with them, please use the following methods to contact them. Message in a bottle or chance encounter card. As soon as he sent out the autograph, the King's Landing group icon jumped. It seemed like He Yuyan couldn't suppress the raging fire in his heart after suddenly feeling the extreme difference in treatment. VA in no words. Thinking of clear dust, what do you mean? President Yu, what's wrong? Chapter 1447. More and more people appeared, but Luo Qingchen didn't say anything. Voice actor in no words. Say something. What do you mean by blacklisting me? Thinking of clear dust. Voice thinking of clear dust. Literally. President Yu, why are you so angry? Voice movie prince. Big brother, big sister, don't fight. Carrot, carrot, carrot. Post-production lightly. That's right. Harmony, harmony. Voice thinking of clear dust. To know the truth, please look at my personality signature. No one in the group spoke for 3 seconds. They probably went to look at her personality signature. He Yuyen exploded when he saw this. What kind of medicine did this Luo Qingchen eat? A few days ago, she listened to everything he said. Why did she suddenly change? He didn't feel any pity for their relationship at all. After all, he could imagine thinking of clear dust in real life just by listening to her domineering female voice. Unkempt hair, half man half woman, fat otaku. He didn't like this kind of person. It was just for his own popularity, but now he felt like he had lost face. He was still the big brother of King's Landing. How could he be blacklisted just like that? Half a minute later, Yu directly opened a private chat and asked her what the situation was. You guys were pretty good before. What happened all of a sudden? Yu was one of the few people in King's Landing who knew about her relationship with Hiyuan. On one hand, it was because of the club, and on the other hand, it was because of some personal friendship. Thinking of clear dust. Scum can't be exposed. You know about wanting words and Meng? Thinking of clear dust. You already knew? When she typed these words, Luo Qingchen, who was in front of the computer, pulled up the corners of her mouth. It seemed like, as the leader of the club, the interest of the club was more important than friendship. After all, No Words was the big brother of King's Landing. His voice was very good and he looked quite good. As the president, Yu naturally didn't want to offend him. Yu, not really. I just happened to see Mingming's broadcast and heard her say something about wanting words. Thinking of clear dust. And, got it. After saying this, she changed her QQ status to invisible. The group chat was still in an uproar, but she had no interest in reading it. Luo Qingchen felt that she had been polite enough. After all, Yea's words had already exposed everything. She had paid attention to Fang Qianmeng and wanted to take her into King's Landing. Although Fang Qianmeng's voice wasn't that good, she still had a large group of otaku fans by acting cute. This was indeed something that the original owner couldn't do. After all, the world was dangerous. Even if you don't harm others, it doesn't mean that others won't harm you. Before turning off the computer, Luo Qingchen checked her mailbox again. It was full of invitations for advertisements or online roles. Even if a voice actor had their own guild, they could still take on their own jobs. Voice acting wasn't considered a professional voice actor. Most voice acting gurus were just doing it for fun. However, there was some truth in the saying that only hobbies and interests could lead to a trance. After searching for half an hour, she still couldn't find the email from Half-Warm Cup. Could it be that the system was wrong? After all, the original owner didn't see this email with her own eyes. The system is right. It's not time yet. Luo Qingchen thought about it and found that it was indeed a bit early. Since the email hadn't arrived, she had to do something that the original owner didn't do, but it was important. To maintain the fans that supported her, at least she couldn't be so cold and aloof. Chapter 1448. Because it took her half an hour to figure out the password. She tried a few times, but they were all wrong. It was a good thing that she finally logged in. The previous host's Weibo name was very simple, it was Thinking of Clear Dust. The last time she logged in was when she registered for Weibo. This Weibo should have been created to promote the club, so it didn't have any meaning to the previous host. After staying on the front page for a second, all kinds of D sounds kept coming. All he could hear were the sound of notifications and the sound of private messages. The phone was stuck for 10 minutes before it let out a sigh of relief. This was the latest iPhone 10. The previous host's family didn't lack money, so she bought it as soon as it came out. It was a silver gray color, a very cold color. If it was her, she would have bought it for a tyrant gold. It had to be said that the previous host had a lot of fans. A total of 27 million fans. They should all be people who liked her voice. Actually, the reason why everyone kicked her was because she didn't maintain a good relationship with her fans. The most important reason was that she didn't give a proper explanation after it happened. The previous host was too naive when it came to scheming. In the next second, her lips curled up as she typed a line on Weibo, thinking of Clear Dust v. I'll broadcast it next Friday. But the broadcast room hasn't been decided yet. What do you guys think? Leaving the decision to the fans was the best way. When the Weibo came out, the words thinking of Clear Dust was sent to the top of Weibo. Hashtag thinking of Clear Dust has posted hashtag at the same time. The exquisitely made-up face in front of the computer froze for a moment. This face came from the champion of last year's most beautiful voice actor, Cute Little Fairy. Her wish had always been to enter the most popular club in the voice acting circle. Her first goal was naturally the #1 Drunken Bliss, but she didn't receive a reply even after sending a few voice actors. Therefore, she could only take a step back and choose King's Landing. As a girl, if she went to King's Landing, she naturally wanted to beat the so-called strongest female voice actor, to become the #1 sister. After all, she was the most beautiful girl in the voice acting circle. Before that, she had first seduced Hee-Yen. The seduction process went very smoothly. In less than 2 days, Hee-Yen fell under her pomegranate skirt and planned to help her fight for a role in Sword Dance Clear Song. She didn't deserve anything else but the female lead, Feng Wu. But at this moment she suddenly panicked. This was because after the person called Thinking of Clear Dust posted on Weibo, her popularity was much higher than expected. If an actress never interacted with her fans, then she was just an actress. The people who paid attention to her only liked her acting. But when an actress starts interacting with her fans, she becomes a celebrity. She is also the idol that her fans call her. Fang Qianmeng had always sold herself as an idol, so even if her voice wasn't that good and her qualifications weren't that good, she could still sweep away all the voice acting gods and win the most beautiful voice acting competition. But if this kind of lucky championship didn't have any substantial works, it would be absolutely untenable. Fang Qianmeng naturally knew this, so she stopped Hee-Yen from insisting that she get the role of Feng Wu in Sword Dance Clear Song. It was a pity that in this parallel world, Luo Qinchen was no longer the original Luo Qinchen. Chapter 1449. Big Sister Peach's Spring. Damn, great God, Clear Dust posted on Weibo. My young girl's heart, when this voice sounded, I couldn't come back to my senses. Everyone calls me Little Cutie. Thinking of Clear Dust, I'm confessing to great God Clear Dust. O equals omega, smiley face, am floating in chaos. I thought that I would never see great God Clear Dust post on Weibo in my life. Not caring about Wang Luan's love. Excited. It's like I've picked up $100. Oh. Seeing the messages from her fans, her lips couldn't help curling into a beautiful arc. As expected, she wouldn't feel tired no matter how many words of praise she read. She scrolled down and found several replies that were more favorable to her. Monkey TV. Great God Clear Dust. Our boss is your fan brother. Do you want to come to our live broadcast platform? Sue? Fighting Shrimp TV. Great God. Fighting Shrimp TV welcomes you. Grapefruit TV. The #1 live broadcast platform invites Great God to join Thinking of Clear Dust. Luo Qingchen's brows trembled as her eyes fell onto the words Grapefruit TV. If she remembered correctly, Fang Qianmeng should be broadcasting on this TV. Thinking of this, she couldn't help secretly laughing in her heart. Since the other side wanted to come to King's Landing to steal a spot from her, Why couldn't she cause trouble on Fong Qianmeng's TV? She opened the private chat and the person in charge of Grapefruit TV had already greeted her. Both of his hands quickly typed a line of words on the iPhone 10. Thinking of clear dust. Hello. I want to join your live broadcast platform. Grapefruit is flattered. I feel like the boss is giving me an extra drumstick. Thinking of clear dust. It is also my honor. In the end, Luo Qingchen signed a contract with Grapefruit TV. Suddenly, the entire voice-acting circle exploded on Weibo. Grapefruit TV didn't forget to give a preview on their official blog, earning a lot of traffic and attention. Grapefruit TV. Our family is about to welcome a great voice-acting god. Where are you, weaving girl? What did Grapefruit TV's official blog just say? Not caring about Wang Luan's love. Could it be that Great God Clear Dust went to Grapefruit TV? Great Clear Dust's little fan. Is this true? Immediately uninstall Monkey TV. I want to use Grapefruit TV in the future. A little flower. It feels like I haven't heard Lord Clear Dust's voice for a long time. I think the soul sacrifice that she wrote is really amazing. Several degrees of displacement. I also fell in love with her voice because of Soul Sacrifice. Peach Jeje Spring. I fell in love with her because of Flowery Demon Realm. Even now, when I recall the Infernal Queen's voice, I still feel my body go numb. Of course, if there was praise, there was always criticism. Legend of the Pengzi World. The originally cold and aloof Almighty suddenly felt like an ordinary person. Smiley face. Disdain, cute love my heart. Half man, half woman, so disgusting. He hated this kind of female voice the most. It was hard to listen to. Of course, thinking of Clear Dust's huge army of fans had already flattened these comments. There were even some people with fragile hearts who directly deleted their replies to prevent themselves from being scolded. But for Luo Qingchen, testing the waters on Weibo this time was a success. At least the fans of the previous host were like scattered sand, but she used a sack to gather all the scattered sand together. Without knowing why, she suddenly wanted to know what Fong Qianmeng was feeling right now. As long as she thought about it, she would laugh in her dreams. It just so happened that her guess was right. Fong Qianmeng, sitting in front of the computer, gritted her teeth in anger. She directly sent a QQ message to He Yuyan, questioning him.